You know, every year when it comes to the combine, there are going to be those guys that just go and wreck shit. Those guys that make everybody take notice and make them scramble to go back and revisit the film and say, oh my God, does this guy play like this on film? And one of those guys that definitely did himself a great service at the combine has to be William Jackson III, the 6 foot, 90 pound senior corner from Houston. Because during the college football season, he was being brought up as a name, but he was more widely viewed as kind of a day two type of prospect, second to third round type of corner. But as the evaluation process started to go along, and you get to the Senior Bowl, and then you get to the Combine, and you've got this guy running in the 4.3s, all of a sudden now the buzz starts to be about him being a first-round pick and maybe being the first corner taken off of the board. Now, in a draft where there were other names that people really gravitate to in terms of the corner position, guys like Vernon Hargreaves and Mackenzie Alexander, I look at William Jackson III, and in my opinion, this is the best corner prospect in the 2016 NFL Draft. Not because he ran fast at the combine, but because of what I saw on film and what I saw in his game and what I see in his game that I think will translate very well to the NFL level, combined with that number one corner upside that he still has more so than some of the other names that I just mentioned. So what does he have? I look at his height and his length. You know, he's 6 foot, 190 pounds. He's got decent size for an outside corner. You know, so height, length won't necessarily be a concern for him. He's got very good deep speed. He's faster than he is quick. And some of you might ask, well, how does that make any sense? If you're quick, you're fast. Not necessarily. I'll give you a perfect example of this. Sometimes guys are quick, but not very fast. They can get out quickly, and they can get up to their top speed quickly, but their top speed is less than other guys, let's say. A perfect example of this would be, let's say, in Olympic level track and field. Johan Blake, Usain Bolt. Johan Blake is probably going to destroy Usain Bolt in the 60 meters every single time. The lion's share reason for that is Johan Blake is smaller and he's more compact, so he is able to get up to his top speed quicker. So he is more likely to win a 60-meter dash 9 out of 10 times than an Usain Bolt is, who is 6'4", 6'5", kind of gangly. It takes him a while to get all of that length in motion. Once he gets that length into motion, it is over. His top speed is better because of his superior length and his turnover and the way he can hold it. And in fact, how long it even takes for Usain Bolt to really get to his top speed usually takes him 80 meters. Where other guys get to their top speed in a 40 to 60 meter window, he maybe takes all the way up to 80 meters. He's still technically accelerating because of that length and because of that superior leg turnover. However, in terms of an initial burst and quickness, Usain Bolt is almost never going to beat a Johan Blake. Johan Blake is quicker. Usain Bolt is faster. That's why he's the fastest man on the planet. William Jackson has good deep speed, good recovery speed. So once he gets going, he can keep up with pretty much everybody. I have a little bit of concern about his quickness. I'll talk about that in a minute. But in terms of actually having that second gear speed, he does have it. And he shows it on film. It's not just something that he showed on the track or on the field at the combine in short pants. He actually shows it on his game film. He shows other things too. Pretty good footwork, solid flexibility in his hips to be able to turn and run. And I really like his footwork, his smoothness in and out of his back pedal. I like the instincts he seems to have for the position, the awareness. He doesn't seem to get bait a lot in terms of double moves. He doesn't seem to bite a lot on play action fakes. He seems to understand where he's supposed to be, what his responsibility is, especially in man coverage, maybe more so a little bit than zone coverage. But William Jackson III, again, is probably a guy you want to deploy much more in man coverage than he would zone coverage anyways. He's pretty solid in run support. You know, this is a guy that will come up and lay a helmet to you. I mean, he's a hitter. This dude brings it. For 190 pounds, he plays with an attitude. He's got a fire. He'll come up there and lay one on your ass. And you like corners that can come up in run support that aren't one-dimensional players. That is, if you run the ball to that side, you feel like, hey, that's just an avenue to invite them to get extra yards. And you're not going to do that on William Jackson. He'll come and he'll lay the helmet on you. Unfortunately, sometimes he will lay his helmet on you, and that could be a problem. We'll talk about that in a moment. But in terms of corners, too, another thing I really like are those corners that do a good job of locating the ball and have the ball skills once they locate the ball to actually make plays happen, to knock the ball away, to keep the ball out of the receiver's hands, to turn over the ball, to intercept the ball. And William Jackson has those skills. If you had any concerns about what type of player William Jackson III could be at the NFL level, go watch his bowl game film against Florida State this year. You saw a first-round pick. You see why this guy is a first-round pick. Because he played against a high level of competition in that game, and he was outstanding. A couple of picks, made some other big plays. He was laying helmets to people. I mean, and it was impressive, too, because in that game, I must note early on, he got his fucking shit shook out of him by the Florida State wide receiver. I mean, that dude put a double move on Jackson, and Jackson looked like one of them dudes that Steph Curry freaking crosses over and breaks their ankles. But he was able to come back from that mentally and still be a big force in that game and make some big plays happen, and that was impressive stuff for me to see. There's a lot on film that I really like about this guy, and again, it has nothing to do with the fact that he worked out through the roof at the Combine. If anything, the Combine only further validated the athleticism and explosiveness in terms of speed that I saw out of him on film. Now, in terms of questions about him, initial quickness. One concern I have about him, he seems that he has good footwork, and I think he does a good job in terms of turning his hips and running with the receiver, but it can take him a little bit to get up to his top speed. So what I have a concern about is that some guys that are real burners, if he doesn't do a good job of affecting them early on, he doesn't get a hand on them within that 5-yard chuck window, he might be able to get a step on him. They won't get 2 steps on him, but they may get a step on him. And as a result, he might have trouble catching up to them, because by the time he's gotten up to his top speed, you're 30, 40 yards down the field, and those guys have a step on you. They're not gaining any ground, but you're not gaining any ground on them. So it could mean that even with the speed that he has, he could be occasionally susceptible to getting beat over the top deep, especially when he's man-on-man against somebody outside. I also have some concerns about his strength. He's a dude that plays physical, and he plays strong, and he plays bigger than he is, but he's not a very strong guy. He does need to get stronger, especially if he's going to be able to press and bump and run against some of those bigger wide receivers he's going to face at the NFL level, especially with the fact that his press technique, I don't think is all that good. I've seen some people talk about his press technique is very good. I don't think so. I think sometimes he'll just get his hands on somebody, but he really doesn't have a means or a reason or a purpose for what he's doing. He doesn't have a thought process in terms of what he's trying to get done. It's just kind of like he's putting his hands on him, and sometimes he just gets himself out of position. I'd like to see him tighten that up and get stronger as well, because he's going to need to if he's going to play outside and become the #1 corner that I think he can be at the NFL level. Another area of concern for him is his over-aggressiveness. Sometimes this is a guy that is so good at reading the quarterback's eyes, that's so good at jumping the ball. Sometimes that could lead to him being a little over-aggressive and laying off the receiver a little bit to try and go up and get the ball and pick it off. And sometimes you can live with that, and sometimes you will die by that too. You know, this is a guy that I could anticipate if he's playing off in space, giving 8 or 10 yards of cushion, could be a little bit susceptible to the double move, because of the fact he's going to try and read the quarterback, he's going to try and read the route, try to jump the route and go pick six it. And sometimes, again, that will work, but sometimes that could come and bite you in the ass. That over-aggressiveness to me also comes into play when it comes to his tackling form and his technique. Here's a guy that sometimes is trying to lay the wood too much to too many people. You know, you're 6 foot, 190 pounds. You could be a big physical dude, you know, in the way you play, and you could lay some wood on people, but you shouldn't be doing that all the time. His tackling technique could use some work. He could get a little more solid in shoring up the fundamentals of his tackling, and in particular, keeping his head up. One thing I don't like about William Jackson when he tackles somebody is he has a tendency when he's going for the big hit to drop his head. That's something that could lead to a neck issue, a concussion issue. You know, I don't like to see young players do that. I want to see them keeping their heads up, if you will. And he needs to work on keeping his head up in tackling, because he can be somebody that you can count on to be solid in run support, but not if he's not on the field, because he just knocked himself out of the game with a fucking stinger or concussion or, good God, something worse because he dropped his head when he was trying to lower the boom on somebody. He's got to shore that up. In terms of an NFL comparison to me, I think a good one actually is Marcus Peters of the Kansas City Chiefs. Guys with size and tools, in theory, that you love. Ball skills to make those big splash plays. Guys that can lay wood to you and can hit. but sometimes not as fast as you might think on film. Sometimes not as physical as you would think based off of their size and tools and what you may have been led to believe. I thought that was very true of Marcus Peters last year coming into the draft out of Washington. I think it's true again for William Jackson. And their over-aggressive ways can hurt. Like Marcus Peters, as a rookie in Kansas City, made some big plays. You made a lot of splash plays, and I anticipate William Jackson could make a lot of those splash plays at the NFL level too. But sometimes Marcus Peters would go too much for the splash play, and he would give up a lot of yards, and he'd give up a lot of big gains consistently. So yeah, it's great the guy has 7, 8 interceptions, but he's given up over 1,000 yards receiving. Is that really a shutdown corner? I don't think so. But when I watch him on film, a lot of what I saw to Marcus Peters, I see in William Jackson. Which, to be fair to Marcus Peters, he still had a really good rookie year. He definitely contributed. He was a part of a very good Chiefs defense, and his best years are potentially ahead of him. And I envision a lot of the same for Jackson, too. I know, again, a lot of people talk about corners like Vernon Hargreaves and Mackenzie Alexander and Eli Apple and so on and so forth. But to me, William Jackson, this guy, again, is the best cornerback in the 2016 NFL Draft. If I'm handicapping the race, the corner that is the most likely to end up being a #1 corner at the NFL level is William Jackson. I think he's got the best height, length, speed, footwork combination, good mind and instincts for the game, good awareness. His ball skills are far superior to Mackenzie Alexander's and Eli Apple's, and they're probably at least on par with Vernon Hargreaves, if not better. And I think he's better in run support than any of those aforementioned guys that I just named. Yes, he's got some things to work on. He's going to need to get stronger. He's going to need to be coached up a little bit in terms of his technique, both in press and bump and run situations and in his tackling as well. He's going to have to learn how to be a little more selective in terms of his aggressiveness, because sometimes he could be going for the kill shot when sometimes he just needs to make the solid fundamental football play. I'd like to see him get a little bit quicker, but the quickness or the lack of big-time explosive initial quickness I don't think is going to kill him, because especially in run support, you see a recognition skill and you see a closing burst. He gets up a couple of steps, he'll come at you very, very quickly. To me, like I said, #1 corner in this draft, I think he should be a top 10 to 15 pick. He's a top 10 to 15 talent, and I'd be stunned, frankly, if he wasn't the first corner off the board. I think there are too many questions about guys like Hargreaves and Apple and Alexander and others, so on and so forth. When I look at corners that have the best package at this moment and look like the safest bets to become a #1 corner at the NFL level, it's William Jackson. Now, some people will say, well, DJ Hayden went to Houston and he was a first-round pick 3 years ago, and look what happened to him. Yeah, I understand, but that's one guy, and, that doesn't mean that, Jackson is going to be Hayden. I'm just saying. I'm still going to stand firm in my evaluation based off of what I saw the past 2 years on film. This is the best corner in the 2016 NFL Draft.